Hey y'all, it's K-Bird Tweets, and this is Peace, Love, and Baseball. Welcome back to this week's episode of Peace, Love, and Baseball. I'm your host, as always, K-Bird Tweets, and this week it is Los Angeles Dodgers week on Peace, Love, and Baseball. So I'm thrilled to tell you that we're going straight to the source, one of the best sources that you can find on the interwebs for all things Los Angeles Dodgers, and that is Clint Pasillas. I should have asked you how to say your last name. You want to tell me how to say it?
It's Pasillas. Yeah, you nailed it right there, to be honest. Got the first time.
Should have just gone for it. Should have trusted myself.
Clint, listen, always let your dreams be dreams or something like that. I forget how that saying goes, but I live by it.
Well, thank you for spending some time with me to inform us all on the great fandom that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. I feel like this is, one of the most storied franchises in all of baseball, but personally, I don't know a ton about them other than they're the big bad Dodgers, especially these days. So I'm excited to get into it with you. But first, you're the host of your show, All Dodgers LA, and you're also the co-host of Dodgers Territory with Alana Rizzo as part of the Foul Territory family, which produces like all my favorite baseball content. So Congrats on that, by the way. Super cool. How did you start following and covering the Dodgers?
So I like to consider myself jokingly a real pioneer of podcasting because way back when, the year is 2008, I decided to get myself a little voice recorder. I was doing, some baseball journalism at the local community college. I'll air quote journalism right there. And I'll say air quote for the people that happen to be listening and not watching. But anyways, I had that. And then I always had this kind of, I like talking for one, but also I love the Dodgers. I like talking about the Dodgers. So I kind of started doing my own thing. I had to, reel the buddy in to try to do it weekly where we're just talking about the Dodgers, kind of shooting the S. I don't know if we curse on this show, so I will shoot the S with you. And did that for a little while, and it was fun. But then, you know how it goes when you're starting things out. This is 2008. There's no such thing as analytics. You don't really know who's looking at anything. And then I'm also much younger than I am now, so I'm not really ready for that level of commitment. So you kind of bail on that and eventually start up another podcast, take that podcast over to, after some time, take it over to Dodgers Nation. And then that thing kind of grew into this monster now. But I ended up, kind of accidentally just weaseling my way into, or finding my way into, writing about baseball, talking about baseball for the last now going on 7 years, of course, now doing it on my own. And it's fun. It can be a challenge from time to time, but thankfully I cover a team that's almost always engaging. Maybe not the early era, 2008 was good, but then things went real bad with the old ownership. And then you get this insane ownership with all of the money in the world, or at least that's what people want to say on the internet if you're not a fan of the Dodgers. So it's always fun to talk about this team, even if at times it feels like a grind. I'm there grinding with the boys on the field, just in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it. You're hanging tough just in your own little virtual corner over here, but the grind is so real. I feel you there. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about how the Dodgers started, like the franchise came to be, because of course they used to be and were initially the Brooklyn Dodgers, but they were founded in 1883 as the Brooklyn Atlantics, which was actually the name of a former professional team that played in Brooklyn before them. The team joined the American Association in 1884 and won the AA championship in 1889 before they joined the National League in 1890. They were winners right off the bat, Clint. They won the NL championship their first year in the league. And over the years, the team was known as the Bridegrooms, the Grooms, the Super Boss, the Robins, and the Trolley Dodgers. before officially becoming the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1933. So, according to MLB.com and the Dodgers' official history, the team Trolley Dodgers, quote unquote, came from the complex maze of trolley cars that used to weave its way through the city of Brooklyn. So, way
Mhm.
back when, in 1892, when there was still professional baseball, the city of Brooklyn, which was actually independent of New York City at the time, began replacing its slow moving horse drawn trolleys with faster, more powerful electric trolleys. And within less than 3 years, by 1895, electric trolley accidents in Brooklyn had resulted in more than 130 deaths and maimed well over 500 people.
Oops.
So this is what the Dodgers are built to do, is just take everybody down. This is making a lot of sense to me already.
No,
But
they were
because
dodging the trolleys. That was the thing. It was there in front of Ebbets Field. They had to dodge these trolleys and eventually dodge the competition, I guess. I don't know. I shouldn't have
yeah,
steamrolled you there.
okay. So that's kind of my question for you. Is there any like known association? Do you think most Dodgers fans like know where the name came from? And is there any kind of association to the trolleys that they were named after today?
Today not so much. I think this is such a obviously such a storied franchise. I will say, hell, I learned a thing or two from you right now, kind of giving the high level overview or back view
Yeah.
of the team there. Um, these days, or as I was going to say, it's such a storied franchise. You get so many people that still, it's passed down. Dodger baseball is passed down generation to generation. You grew up with Vin Scully. Your grandfather grew up with Vin Scully. His maybe not his grandfather, but still. You know about the team, at least a little bit about the heritage, where it came from, the move from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, of course, the bad things that kind of happened to make Los Angeles and Dodger Stadium come to be, and that is a very, very terrible way to kind of wash over that history. Check out the internet, guys, if you want to know about all the things that happened that made
Yeah.
Dodger Stadium come to be. But the only thing I would say now that is kind of maybe touching into the idea of a trolley is I can't believe I'm bringing up the former owner again, Frank McCourt. So he has kind of he owns still the parking lot, and he has
Oh,
a company that is not he's not attached to, but he is attached to. But anyways, what they're trying to do is start a gondola or the aerial rapid transit system. But it's supposed to be a gondola that takes you from like the train station, not very far from LA, and just pulls you right up into Dodger Stadium.
oh,
That's
sweet.
another thing that is it's a whole can of worms here in LA County. But if anything, we can say that is the closest we can get, is calling a gondola a trolley, and that's being real
Okay.
stretching that thread thin.
Interesting. Yeah, because the other thing that this made me question is, do the Dodgers have a mascot?
The best mascot this team ever had. I have his jersey hanging up over here in the corner. That is a former manager, Hall of Fame manager Tommy Lasorda, from 1978 to 1997. He was their mascot, or 77 to 97, I think it was. I don't know. I wasn't around in the 70s there, but that was the closest you get to a mascot. Now they have introduced like some, you know, almost like goofy figures that walk around at Dodger
Sure.
Stadium, but official mascot, not so much.
Okay.
Maybe the Dodger dog is a mascot. The
Oh,
actual
yeah.
a hot dog.
Well, since you brought that up, what is a Dodger dog? What makes a Dodger dog a Dodger dog?
Well, this is another whole thing. If Dodger fans are watching this, you're going to get some vitriol in the comments about them wanting to have Farmer John hot dogs back over the Papa Cantella dogs that are now being served at Dodger Stadium. But a Dodger dog is, I'm going to get some heat for this as well. It's something you need to pretend is good, but it's not
Oh,
really that
okay.
great, you know.
Give it
But
to me straight,
a
Clint.
hot dog, get it grilled. Get your Dodger dog grilled. Do
Okay.
not get the little the boiling water version of a hot dog. That's awful.
Interesting. Okay, because I mean, I'm a Cardinals fan, but I live in Chicago, and the Chicago dog is a really big deal here,
Oh yeah,
especially at Wrigley Field and at not US Cellular, Guaranteed Rate. So
rip US Cellular.
yeah, yeah. I will call it the cell forever, as many people will, but yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that's deeply rooted in Dodgers culture. All right. The Dodger dog is the closest thing we got to a mascot. Interesting. I'm like trying to think if there's any other teams that like don't have don't like have a mascot. I don't know. Interesting. We'll do some deeper research. The Dodgers might be the only one. But since I have you here we're recording here on Tuesday, April 16th, the day after Jackie Robinson Day. Jackie Robinson was a Dodger. So if you don't know about Jackie Robinson, I mean, you probably know at least this, that until April 15th of 1947, no Major League Baseball team had employed an African-American player. And that is when Jackie Robinson played his first Major League game as a member of the then Brooklyn Dodgers. Branch Rickey, who was previously a player for the St. Louis Browns and a tenured GM of the St. Louis Cardinals, had taken over as president and GM of the Dodgers, along with acquiring 25% of Dodger stock. I didn't realize that he was actually an equal part owner at the time with 3 other people. I found a 2008 New York Times article, which was celebrating the life of Branch Rickey when he passed away. And it talked about how it was actually like very deeply personal for him wanting to break the color barrier and bring on a player like Jackie Robinson, which, you know, obviously there was some good business behind it as well, but he was a member of a specific church that was very, very heavily involved in advocating for social justice issues and later in the civil rights movement. But that was just like an interesting tidbit about Branch Rickey that I found, and that obviously Jackie went on to be this incredible player for many reasons that we could, you know, make a whole 2-hour podcast about. But he won the first ever Rookie of the Year award, along with 6 pennants in his 10 seasons with the Dodgers, and he became the first African American elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1963. Now, we just celebrated Jackie Robinson Day, you know, league wide yesterday. Is there anything specific to the Dodgers franchise of the way that like his legacy lives on today?
One of the good things about this organization, again, it is a very storied organization. You say, you know, growing up a Cardinals fan, you know about the history and legacy and what that means to another storied organization like the Cardinals. Same with the Cubs. We'll say the Cubs there as well. But the Dodgers, they are very good at taking care of their own, remembering their own, making sure that that legacy is carried on. And you know, while Jackie Robinson did not play at Dodger Stadium during his career, still the kind of we'll say the fingerprint of what came before Dodger Stadium. Of course, the Brooklyn Dodgers, known as Dem Bums, did not win a World Series until 1955. Jackie was just about at the end of his career at that point. They end up moving to LA in 1958, and they win a World Series pretty quickly in 59. But with the team it was still a lot of the team that came from that era that played alongside Jackie. And I mean, obviously I'm not there. I'm not a massive history guy, but I know that when I go to Dodger Stadium now, you don't need to go very far to find some piece of memorabilia, some sort of plaque that commemorates something about an important player to the organization, not just any important player, but also a bunch about Jackie Robinson, and including, you know, some, again, game use stuff and all that. It really is a museum in its own right, Dodger Stadium. But Jackie Robinson Day, I think we just celebrated the 77th year of the breaking of the color barrier. And it's still, I mean, with the modern climate as it is, not that we're getting too deep into that. It's crazy to know to understand how much of a patient man this guy was, because he took a lot of vitriol. There was no online comments, thank God, back then. But yeah, he took some heat, and you know, it was just smile, take it, and go out there and set a better example for the next wave of people, of African Americans, of people of color in baseball, in sports, honestly in the community too. Yeah. And you know, we would not be where we're at as a society without Jackie Robinson playing baseball, which is kind of funny to say, but that's how important,
it's so true.
How important Jackie is.
Yeah, it's so true. I was, you know, watching 42 a week or so ago, and sometimes, I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes I feel so removed from stuff like that when you watch it and you're just like, oh, it's so wild. Like, can you imagine people used to be that awful? But it's so important to revisit. And like you said, especially given the current climate, like, history is doomed to repeat itself, especially if we don't remember and keep it alive. So it just, yeah, it puts it in perspective over and over again how important it is that we do celebrate and acknowledge that every year. And yeah, I guess like, but from looking deeper into the franchise, I just realized he wasn't even an LA Dodger.
Nope.
But as you say, that's a really big part of this franchise's story, is that the moving from Brooklyn to LA. So we won't get into like the super deep, twisty awfulness of it. I'm just going to give you a, again, very high level take here of when it happened and kind of, you know, what pushed them out west. So starting around 1947, Walt O'Malley became the majority holder of the team, and he began talking to the city of Brooklyn about a new field. Everybody agreed. They were like, Ebbets Field, the home of the Brooklyn Dodgers, it's getting old, needs some updates. We need to get them out of here. So the team had actually designed a new 55,000 seat stadium to be located in Brooklyn. It seemed to be a pretty promising idea, but there was this guy named Robert Moses who seems to be as much to blame as anyone for the Dodgers now playing in LA. Is that a name that you know, Clint?
That's not a name that honestly is brought up very regularly when you're talking about the move. It's more so really centered on the Walter O'Malley factor of it and him wanting his stadium and kind of, you know, fielding offers from all around.
Yeah, it seems like he's definitely public enemy number one for Brooklyn Dodgers fans. But this Robert Moses he never held public office, but he was an urban planner and he controlled millions of dollars in public funds. So he is considered actually the father of the suburbs. So he favored initially like investing in building roads over public transportation. So he didn't like the idea of a new stadium in Brooklyn because he was worried about traffic jams. And he said, how about we put you out in Flushing in Queens? And Walter O'Malley was like, absolutely not. That sounds terrible. I'm not going to Queens. So he had another idea in mind. Travel had begun for teams between coast to coast from air instead of train at this point. And Los Angeles officials had actually attended the 1956 World Series, and they were looking at possibly moving the Washington Senators to the West Coast. So Walter O'Malley gets wind of this, and he says, hey, don't pass on the Senators. How about me? LA offered him what ultimately New York could not. And you think about it right now. So I'm actually looking at homes to like try to move to the East Coast. And this is the biggest problem that I'm having over there. There's just not as much space, right? There's just not as much to work with. So it gave him what New York was just never going to be able to do. And that was land suitable for building a big ballpark. He could own the ballpark. He could have complete control over all the revenue streams. And of course, that sounded like a great idea. So the Dodgers played their first 3 seasons at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and then they constructed a Dodger Stadium in time for opening day of 1962. I did not realize this either because it just seems so crazy, but it is the third oldest stadium behind just Fenway, which was built in 1912, and Wrigley, which was built in 1914. It is also often referred to as a pitcher's ballpark, as the stadium has seen 13 no-hitters, 2 of which were perfect games. I guess that's a lot more than any other stadium. And it has been deemed the most popular Major League Baseball stadium on social media. Now, Clint, I have never been to LA at all, but I hear this time and time again. Dodger Stadium is the place to be. So tell me about it. What is the Dodger Stadium experience? What makes it so great that it's still standing and people are still flocking to it 162 days a year?
Well, when we're talking about the third oldest ballpark, opened in 1962, it still looks beautiful. It still holds up. It's still a great experience at this ballpark. I would say get there early. Traffic is a pain. Hey, I hear they're trying to build this gondola to get you there a little bit easier. But it's a great like family experience. It's a great experience with friends and making new friends there. You're all celebrating, ideally rooting on the same thing. But they keep fixing it. They keep improving it. They had this massive multi-million-dollar renovation that happened before the team was supposed to host the All-Star game in 2020. We know what happened in 2020, but one of the things that was always kind of missing was what they call now the front door to Dodger Stadium at beyond center field. It was just pavement. It was just parking lot. It looked pretty drab, looked pretty nasty. They built this beautiful complex and added a whole bunch of food and drink options and places for people to hang, to not just need to be in your seats and watching the game and then go home. It's an opportunity to make it it's not necessarily like you're going to a bar with friends because it's much more expensive, but you get freedom. You can go to Dodger Stadium and kind of curate your own sort of experience. If you want to go there and just get, really, really blackout drunk, that they can take care of you, provided you have a lot of money to burn. If you want to go and watch a game with your family, you can get every view unobstructed. You get the beautiful view of the San Gabriel Mountains behind you. You can go to top deck and look at downtown LA from behind and get, any time of year, incredible views of that. If you want to try to get a party of people going together, they give you options there. Provided you have money, you can do just about anything there. But I think that's one of the things that's really, really cool. The stadium experience is you can make it just about anything you want. And there are now like kind of indoor bars as well, where, if you feel like for some reason going to Dodger Stadium and then just going into almost a sports book type of setup, like they got you covered there. And that I would argue that's my favorite part is, again, you can make any experience you want to have there.
Yeah, when I was reading about it, it sounds like the initial of construction of it was just very thoughtfully done, in the sense that I heard that O'Malley wanted to make sure there was not a bad seat in the house, which is kind of what you're saying. Do you have a favorite spot that you like to sit at?
So mine is honestly kind of newer, as part of those renovations that they did. They turned and what's her name? Janet Marie Smith, by the way. Brilliant. She is a brilliant designer. She is the person who also made Camden Yards as beautiful as it is in the late 90s. And she is one of the senior VPs of the Dodgers who kind of spearheaded all of this change and beautification at Dodger Stadium. One of the things they did was, as part of that front door, one of the more useful or useless parts for decades was you get the bleachers. We call them pavilions out here. The very, very top row, you're at the top row. You feel like this is the worst place you could honestly be. What they did was kind of, created some mezzanine up there. There's openings, there's concessions up there now, and there's drink rails and stuff. So I enjoy that area because I'm somebody that likes to kind of explore my space. I'm going to go with a few people. I might have a few people come and say hi to me because, you're going to a ball game. There's probably 10 or 15 of your friends there from different walks of life that happen to be there that day. So I really like that it's at the very top of the pavilion. Most people might not expect it to be as nice as it is, but it's one of the more cool and, again, kind of open and inviting areas of the renovated Dodger Stadium.
Very cool. Okay, you've got me sold. I want to check it out. One of the other things that I found interesting in learning about their move from Brooklyn to LA was that ultimately the Dodgers owner had to convince the Giants owner, the New York Giants, to move to San Francisco, as the Major League Baseball owners would only vote to approve if they both moved together, because we got to keep that good old Dodgers Giants rivalry alive to really get baseball going on the West Coast. So the Dodgers and the Giants became the first two Major League Baseball teams, both west and south of St. Louis. Now, as a Cardinals fan, they were the furthest team west for a long time. So the fan base is still, to this day, spread very far and wide. Do you feel like Dodgers fandom is still spread wide across the country today?
Oh yeah, and you see it in the broadcast, because you will hear a "Let's Go Dodgers" at just about any away game. You go to any ballpark, you're going to see probably a few Dodger fans sprinkled in there, even if the Dodgers aren't playing. I think they were third in baseball last year in road attendance at like 35,000 a game. Wow. Dodgers fans, they're still far and wide. They are across the country because there are still people, from the Brooklyn era, and they're the generations after, the people that actually watch them in Brooklyn, that are like, no, this is, either way, this is still our team. Yeah, it sucks that they moved, but we're gonna keep that alive. And we also don't want to root for the Mets, so we're gonna be Dodgers fans. So yeah, the Dodgers fans, Dodger Blue runs deep all across the country.
That was actually going to be my next question for you because New York still had one team. They had the Yankees up until 1962 when the New York Mets were founded. And I had no idea about this, but apparently the Mets colors are intentionally a blend of Dodgers blue and Giants orange. I'm like, oh, duh. Are former Brooklyn Dodgers fans, do you think they're mostly Mets fans now, or like they're still more Dodgers fans?
So in the years I've been doing some form of this, I've had a lot of people reach out, whether they're upset about something the team did, and it's like, I've been a fan since 1950, the Brooklyn Dodgers or whatever it may be. They keep that lineage, they keep that fandom. You can still go to a Mets game, you can still root for the Mets, but really their heart still bleeds Dodger blue, not Mets off blue.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not quite the same as now when we're seeing teams maybe move, and obviously there's a whole storylines around those two that may be more or less the same, but it's, the expansion of baseball west was kind of like part of the growth of with the country at the time and the economy and all of that, whereas now it's just different. So I know obviously there were a lot of Brooklyn Dodgers fans who are very upset about it, but not sure if they just said, no, I'm staying here in New York, or that Dodger blue, because they really do uphold, like, the aesthetic is still so similar, and it seems like so much of it is still carried on all the
Well,
way
one
across the country.
one of the things you also said was there was no Mets at the time. So it was, you're
Right.
a Brooklyn Dodgers fan, or you're a New York Giants, or you're New York Yankees. Well, the Giants went to San Francisco. The Dodgers went to Los Angeles. If you were a Dodgers fan, you sure as hell were not going to become a Yankees fan in that era. So
Mm,
your heart still stayed with the Dodgers.
that makes perfect sense. Well, the Dodgers not only have a strong following throughout this country, but throughout numerous other countries as well. They have a strongly devoted following in Mexico due to the impact of Mexican players from Fernando Valenzuela to Esmel Valdez, among others. And I read that an estimated 54% of fans in home attendance are of Mexican descent. Does that read to you? And like, how is that culture prevalent at Dodger Stadium?
Oh yeah, no, the Chicano culture is alive and vibrant at Dodger Stadium. It's one of the things, you'll get people online talking crap about it, but if you come to a Dodger game and know your role, you're going to have a really good time with the fine folks that are there who have also been Dodgers fans since the very beginning. And then definitely, the same way, Jackie, and really the Brooklyn kind of lineage, we'll say, or the fandom followed west. It was Fernando that kind of pushed that fandom down into Mexico and really worldwide when Fernando Mania was going wild. It grew fans, and that blood passes down generation to generation and still runs very, very strong at Dodger Stadium.
That's awesome. Okay, this next finding actually had me feeling a little less salty about Shohei and Yamamoto, because I was like, all right, the Dodgers have done the groundwork, and I know other teams have too, but it at least made me feel like, look, they put in the time. And this was like a long-term plan for them, which of course it was. They're the Dodgers. But the Dodgers have also invested in developing and signing players from Asian countries dating back to the 1980s. The former owner, Peter O'Malley, started clinics in South Korea and China in the 80s, and they built baseball fields in 2 Chinese cities. And in 1998, they became the first major league team to open an office in Asia.
Mhm.
The Dodgers were the second team to start a Japanese player, and the first in nearly 30 years when they started pitcher Hideo Nomo, and the first team to start a South Korean player, pitcher Chan Ho Park, who threw out the first pitch at the South Korea series,
That's
and
really
the
cool.
first Taiwanese player in Chin Fang Cheng. And there have been other big moments in representation from Asian-born players since then, obviously, but the latest being Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Do you assume that they had a leg up in signing? Were you like, you just thought the writing was on the wall because you knew that they had this long-term investment and relationship?
I mean, you feel pretty strongly that the Dodgers can go out and sign any free agents that they want.
Sure.
Usually they won't go above and beyond. They won't go to where the market. They'll wait for the market to come down to them. That's where you get like maybe a Teoscar Hernandez signing like we saw
Yeah.
I guess in the middle of the offseason. With Shohei Ohtani, I would say there was a pretty strong kind of leg up or foot in the door there just because he wanted to be a Dodger the first time around, but that wasn't necessarily an option for him because there was no universal DH. But all of that said, the important part of this is you go back to now we talk Nomo mania, Hideo Nomo, and how important that was for Japan, because anytime there's an at bat or anytime there's a Yamamoto start now, same as it was back then. I mean, this is like must watch TV in Japan. You get, I think it was like something like 44%. I probably got the numbers right, but 44% of Japanese households were tuned into that Korea series.
Wow.
The timing helped for sure, but that's an insane amount of people. And you attribute that to Yama and Shohei being on such a storied franchise already when you're talking about Japan because of somebody like Nomo or Kazuhisa Ishii or somebody like Takashi Saito over the years. The Dodgers, they find a way to get very good players as most fans around get very upset about, other fans of other teams get upset about. But to answer the question, if they had a leg up, I would say maybe like an ankle up, maybe like a calf, but not the whole leg. I think everybody who has money was in the sweepstakes there. But
Sure.
knowing the history that the Dodgers do have definitely played a role.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's one thing if you like talk smack about just throwing out the most money, but when you look back and you're like, all right, there's other ways to create value, and they did all of those things too. So I thought that was worth mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the Dodgers are a very storied franchise, as we've talked throughout here, but there are a couple specific things that I wanted to ask you about. Obviously the Dodgers won their first World Series title in 32 years in 2020, which was the pandemic shortened season. And I'm sure something that a lot of Dodgers fans are fielding crap from other fan bases all the time in is that it's not real because it wasn't a real season. But what I want to know is like, how does the Dodgers fan base feel about that title and its validity given the shortened season?
I'd say if you asked a greater majority of people in 2021, they'll be like, no, that was awesome. We've been waiting for this for so long. I got to watch this with my grandpa. This is awesome, or whatever the hell it may be. But as we get further removed from it, and then the struggles in 2021, losing to the Braves, running out of pitching, running out of healthy living players at that point, and then 2022 and 2023, watching them get bounced in the first round, it starts to feel a little bit more. I'm not going to say Mickey Mouse, but you didn't get a chance to celebrate. You did not get that parade, and I think that is what Dodgers fans are clamoring for most of all now. They want to be able to celebrate with people, together with the players, and throwing beers. You've watched so many other teams chucking beers to players, or fans chucking beers to players on these buses or whatever. It's like, when is our time? Because it has not happened since 1988. If we're talking about a full season World Series win with the parade and all that. But that said, it is a fully legitimate championship because everybody had the same amount of opportunity to win it. So I would argue that is more legitimate than the 2017 Astros World Series.
I was going to say, I guess I had thought about it from that perspective of like, the 2017 Astros were like, we have to win the World Series again to kind of put that behind us. That's not the same as this, as the Dodgers feeling like we need to win our next World Series so that people will shut up about 2020. It's not, not the same kind of.
Like, had they ran it back in 21 or even one in 22, then maybe it's kind of like that solidifies. I think, I don't know if there's a statute of limitations when it comes to, solidifying your quantifying your World Series wins. To me, it feels like that window has sort of expired because this is an extremely different team than it was in 20 compared to the one that was also in 17 and all that. I mean, at this point, it's really 2 players left from the 17 team. Well, 3 with Kike back, I think it is, but we don't need to get into roster semantics, but yeah, just go out and win. And then we don't need to talk about 20 anymore.
There you go. Well, I mean, the reason that the Dodgers are constantly in the playoff contention conversation is because they do not just one thing really well, they do a lot of different things really well. The Dodgers have had 8 Cy Young Award winners, a total of 12 wins, which is more than any other major league team. What makes them so successful with starting pitching? Is it like a consistent approach, or is it just that they have evolved with the game?
That one I will go back to kind of like legacy and looking at the generations before you. For a very long time before the O'Malley ownership group sold off to Fox and things, relationships kind of disintegrated with a number of franchise icons. This is a team that always has it keeps its own around. Sandy Koufax is a guy that is still around and with this organization. Don Drysdale, before he died, was around, and a broadcaster up until the 90s. Oral Hershiser is back, who's somebody who's meant so much of this organization over the years. Your 1988 Cy Young Award winner. Fernando Valenzuela is another one of those guys. Before that, a guy who just passed away today, Carl Erskine, was around for many years, just being a part of the organization. Charlie Huff, who's still a part of this organization in some way. Don Newcomb, who was the first ever, if I remember correctly, the first ever Rookie of the Year and Cy Young Award winner, and an MVP as well. But he got them both in the same year, and he was somebody who was very important and integral to being around, just for not this playing career, but for decades after the fact. So you get every voice, of every generation of successful Dodger team kind of sprinkling a little bit of something into this next generation, and up to and including now Clayton Kershaw, a little bit of Walker Buehler, maybe some Bobby Miller in there. You're seeing that legacy, that tradition kind of continue.
Oh, I love that. I would not have thought about it that way, but as soon as you started talking about it, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And there are definitely certain franchises that prioritize that more than others, and you can see the trickle down effect. That's kind
Yeah.
of the way that you do kind of both things that I just asked you about. Do you evolve with the game, but you also, maintain a consistent approach. That's how
Yeah.
you
At the
do it
same
all.
time, if we're talking about evolving with the game as well, this is a team that, now they call it Mark Pryor's lab or whatever. Uh,
Mhm.
when they got into the analytics and they got into, the super slow motion cameras and all of that, they were right up there at the forefront of doing what Driveline was doing, and then advancing beyond it, and getting the most and the best out of pitchers for the modern day, where everybody's also now getting hurt, and our pets' heads are falling off. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, well, they're also very good about, I mean, comparatively about investing in pitchers' health for the long term and rehab and everything. So it'll be interesting now as we're kind of seeing this new era or new challenge evolve if they can, rise above that too, because I'd certainly think they would have a leg up just given their track record. But
Mhm.
the other thing that really stands out about the Dodgers and awards like year over year is that they have 18 Rookie of the Year award winners, way more than any other major league team. Is this credited back to their scouting and development? Or, I mean, there's something that they're doing better all around.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little while since we've we had they had the back to back in 16 and 17 with Corey Seager and Cody Bellinger. Before that, it was a pretty decent stretch of time before, to find that last one, and then have a couple of different blocks of having 5 rookies of the year in a row is kind of absurd. But yeah, I mean, it comes down to, this is an organization that, when it's run correctly, always does invest in its front office. It invests into its baseball operations, into scouting, and like you had mentioned, scouting all around the world. Uh,
Mhm.
that's what they do. And when you do that, when you invest everywhere, you're going to find more of those diamonds in the rough than other people might.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they are ahead of the curve there. Well, I do want to ask you a bit about the business of baseball, just from your thoughts, because this is something that like I have said it makes sense to me, but I don't think I can talk about it or articulate it on the level that you can, being much more immersed in, just following how the team is run, for decades now. But so can you tell us a little bit about how the Dodgers as an organization, like under the current ownership, which has been since 2012, correct?
Yeah.
how they are able to offer the likes of these current contracts. Because I think something that we as baseball fans, we all got really invested in Shohei Ohtani's contract and all his deferred money, but this is not the first time that they've done something like that. So how how are they set up to be able to do this and create these kind of long-term payroll commitments? Because it is my understanding, at least, that they're one of the only teams, if not the only team in baseball, that could really have pulled off this kind of a contract.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at a Shohei Ohtani, and reportedly Shohei did offer the same kind of setup to the Angels, where Art Moreno
Right.
said, "No, I already got my value out of you. I'm not going to actually pay you what you're worth moving forward." But what the Dodgers do so well is they don't look at anything in a 1 or 2, 3 year span. They're looking years and years down the line. They, as annoying as it might be to some fans, they don't always have these kind of off seasons where they go and spend or commit to 1.3 billion dollars in player contracts. You look at the last off season where they let people like Trey Turner walk, Cody Bellinger walk, and they find a way to use that scouting, that development, that the money they invest in their organization to go and pull somebody like a Jason Hayward kind of literally off the scrap heap, make him into something. Who else? I mean, go back. I'm just going to pull random names out of my ass here with a Brandon Morrow, with a Joe Blanton. If we're looking on the pitching side, Tyler Anderson, you make those kind of cheaper investments, and you set up for something big. And they know they do have the money to make something big happen, because if Shohei wanted more money, they were going to give him more money. I don't think they were going to be like, no, we will only pay you $2 million a year. They say that was kind of Ohtani's idea to because he wants to win. That's how annoyed he must have been by the end of his tenure in Anaheim. It's like, I just want to win some baseball games. But it's just like a top-down organization mentality of, yeah, we know we can really go out and get whatever we want, but that's not going to lead to success in 5 or 7 years from now.
Right.
They want that longevity, they want that sustainability, they want that optionality to not have somebody under, like the Padres are going to be in a very, very rough spot when they have a couple of 40-year-olds making multi-million dollars trying to play third or shortstop and not having more than one DH spot open to them. That's something they're just not, the Dodgers are not interested in. And that's where you don't get the massive deals going out to Corey Seager. It's like, this is the money that we will allot to you. This is what we think you're worth. This is what we think we can do also with the club. And he said, no, I want to go get the bag into Texas. And hey, it worked out for him. But it's just them being really, really smart with their money and knowing when to spend, and knowing what they have in player development and in the pipeline, in the farm system, making these moves like we see Michael Busch tearing it up. That's a Dodger. That's a Dodger drafted, born and raised player that had no place to play. So what do? They go and flip him for somebody that could be useful to the organization in a couple of years. And we've seen that time and time again with another guy, Nick Frasso. His trade piece, Mitchell White, was just DFA'd by the Blue Jays today. The list can go on and on, but they pick and choose their battles. They let the market come to them. They don't usually chase the market. They did in the Yamamoto situation, but that's how you find that sustainability. That's how you see them, being the National League West champions for 11 of the last 12 years. You do it by being smart, or else you're real good, and then you have that stark fall off.
Right. And the long-term investment, the big picture investment. I mean, that's the kind of business that I can get behind in all kinds of business. And I was going to mention exactly what you said with like teams like the Padres and the Mets. The thing that's not as easy to appreciate about what they went and did, and why it ultimately has already proven to not be, probably not be successful, is because of the lack of foresight and long-term investment. So that is something that I certainly appreciate about the Dodgers and their approach just overall. I got 2 more questions for you, and they're kind of fun. So, go with it. But the first one, I want to know, our listeners, we have a lot of overseas listeners, so I like to inform them, about the culture of all the different franchises, and as they're kind of maybe finding a team to follow. But what is the worst thing about being a Dodgers fan? That might be kind of hard because it seems like there's a lot of great things about being a Dodgers fan, but every fan base has like, this the solidarity of the things that they really, sit and are heavy on their heart. What is the toughest thing about being a Dodgers fan?
Um, I don't know that it's tough in the traditional sense, but it's real. Like it's like, oh no, I only have all of this money, but what am I going to do with this other money? That's like I almost attribute it that way when I'm going to say that you go into each year with all of these expectations. You expect me to get a new XLR cable, but you expect to win a World Series, and then they get bounced in the first round a couple of years in a row. You don't make it to a World Series in 2021. Going in, like I know, boo hoo. Going into each
Clint,
season,
I got to stop you right there. Don't talk to me about 2021 because the pain of that wild card game lives so deep. Like the scars are still
we're
here.
still paying for it because that got Chris Taylor paid, and Chris Taylor's hitting 0-30 right now.
I can't hear the name Chris Taylor.
And then they went and signed Alex Reyes, and then they paid him money for no reason for a year. So there, look at that. You really
and that's
won.
the thing. Yes. Well, when you were talking about even like all of the people they let walk, how quickly we forget all of these things, all of the sacrifices that were made to make the great things happen. So that's a really good point. And I guess I should have thought of that. Like the Dodgers are notorious, and that's like the only thing that other fan bases can give the Dodgers fans shit about is like, you're going to get knocked in the first round of the playoffs. But
yeah, it's getting one of the things you see a lot more of older fans that are around and could remember things in the 90s is that Braves. You guys are just the Braves again. One championship and 14 straight playoff appearances for the Braves. It's fun. I do not clamor for the era of 70 win ball clubs even slightly,
right.
but the last 2 years I've been like, just go out and win 88 games and make a wild card, like earn it. And then these assholes go and win 100 games. Like, it's really hard out here to be a Dodger fan.
We all want what we can't have, because me being an NL Central fan, I am like just fuming over the level of mediocrity and the fact that like clearly these teams are being put together to win 80 max 90 games because they can sneak into the playoffs, and all you got to do is get in, right? That's like my favorite phrase.
But it really is a proven model now.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of great things about being a Dodgers fan, especially these days. But what is the best thing about being a Dodgers fan?
Knowing that your team is going to go out there and probably win 100 games each year. That is pretty damn cool to be the envy of so many other fan bases. That's fun. You put aside the failures and you put aside all the expectations. I don't think there's one fan of another fan base that like wouldn't wish the Dodgers level of success onto their organization, onto the team that they root for. So that's pretty cool. Knowing what is it? I guess they hate us because they ain't us.
Absolutely. Yep. And I gotta admit, I'm drinking a little of that haterade over here. So I appreciate you coming on today and standing up for the respect that the Dodgers deserve, because I see it, I know it, and this is peace, love, and baseball. So we are here to spread the good word of all 30 teams. Clint, tell us where we can follow you on social media.
So I am at Real FRG on the X or Twitter, whatever you guys decide to still call it. Also on the Instagram, nothing very exciting goes on there, usually drinking and camping. And then also find me as All Dodgers LA. I have a podcast that I do here on the YouTube or wherever you're putting this. It's also, audio only, and twice weekly on Foul Territory with Dodgers Territory. Check it out, subscribe, hit that like button, and all those kind of things.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. And I'm wishing maybe not the Dodgers, but at least you all the success and happiness throughout this 2024 season. And yeah, thanks again for your time. And I always feel like I should say go team that we're talking about, but I can't do it. I can't do it for the Dodgers. So go Clint, you go. And we're going to keep cheering for you.
Go sports. Just say go sports. There it is.
We can say go baseball because we'll root for good baseball. That's what we can agree upon here.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun.